Merry and Pippin are the lovable clowns of the Fellowship. No, not that type of clown. But even they see incredible growth as characters over the journey of the Lord of the Rings. And that growth and maturation will be explored in these builds. Because Merry and Pippin were so close, pretty much attached at the hip until they parted ways in Return of the King, we're going to be doing their builds together. Most of their builds will be the same, but they will be branching off in their later levels. In addition, I'm going to do the basic section with them together and then do their appearances one at a time. So let's get started. We of course know that both of them are going to be halflings, and for them, we're going to go with Lightfoot Halfling. Their starting class is going to be the Bard, and this has really become the staple for the starting class for hobbits. For their starting cantrips, we're going to go with Vicious Mockery, which is really just a fun play at their cheeky personalities. And then the other one will be Friends, due to their high charisma that makes them easy to get along with. For their starting spells, we're going to go with Longstrider. They're actually pretty quick for how short their legs are. Heroism, they have a lot of moments of surprising bravery. Disguise Self, they, like Frodo and Sam, also have elven cloaks. And then Tasha's Hideous Laughter. This is just a fun play at them being silly and making others laugh. Their starting instrument is also going to be the flute for the same reason it was chosen for Sam. For their background, I'm going to go with Entertainer on this. I think there's a couple viable choices here, but Entertainer opens up acrobatics and performance, which I think is appropriate for them. And the way that we get to know them in The Lord of the Rings has a lot to do with them being highly charismatic, likable, and just the life of the party. For the ability points, we're going to give Merry more intelligence and wisdom, as he was the more intelligent and mature of the two cousins, and for Pippin, we're going to give him more charisma, as he was the more charming of the two. So the stats are going to be a little bit different between the two. I'll start with Merry and then do Pippin. So for Merry, we're going to do a 10 in strength, we're going to do a 17 in dexterity with that +2 modifier, a 13 in con, that'll get evened out later, as will the dex, a 12 in intelligence, a 10 in wisdom, and a 14 in charisma with that +1 bonus. Now for Pippin, this will look similar but a little different. We're going to keep the 10 in strength, 17 in dex, and 13 in con, but intelligence we're going to bring all the way down to 8. Wisdom we're going to keep at 10. Charisma we're going to bump up to 16. Sorry, Pippin, but you ain't the sharpest hook in the shed. For skills, it's going to be the same for both of them. Now, they get acrobatics and performance from the background, but we have 3 to choose for their class. Sleight of hand and stealth make sense because, well, they were thieves after all. And persuasion, because they were pretty good at getting their way. All right, that will do it for the basics. Let's now go into the appearances. Please note that the appearances, as with the others, are going to be based off the actors in the films, but due to the limitations within BG3, these two are going to look incredibly similar. We'll start with Merry. Body type 2, identity male. I felt like the closest voice for Merry was voice 3. We're going to be using head 6. Skin tone is going to be neutral tone 2. Going down to eyes, he has blue eyes, and I felt like blue 1 was the closest. The hair is going to be carry-on feathers, so this is longer and less curly but more wavy than the choice that we used for Frodo and Sam. Hair color is going to be brown gold 3, so still brown, but it's got blonde in it. And we're going to use the highlights of brown 2, just about 50-ish%, to just make it a little bit darker, but you still see that blonde coming through in the sunlight. Now that is it for Merry, so let's do Pippin now, and again this is going to look really similar. So all we really need to do with this, we're going to keep the same body type identity and face and skin tone. However, I did feel like voice 1 was more appropriate for Pippin. We're going to change the eye color. The eye color is still blue, but it's going to be blue 2 instead, which is a much lighter, paler blue. The hair cut is going to be the same, but the hair color is going to be different. The hair color is going to be brown 3, and then the highlights are going to be brown 1, again about 50-ish%. So again, they look incredibly similar. That's because there's not really another face that works well for them in BG3. When official mods come out, I'm sure there will be other options available to make them a little more distinct. With appearances out of the way, it's time to get into the builds. All right, now with the builds, just an FYI here that we are going to be bouncing around more than usual to try and mirror where Merry and Pippin were in terms of skills and abilities in the first part of their journey versus the middle and the end. In addition, the Merry and Pippin builds, as I mentioned earlier, are going to split off from each other, and this is representative of their split from each other in Return of the King and the different experiences they had. Okay, starting at level 2, we're going to stay in Bard for now, and the spell we're going to choose is Charm Person, which I feel is appropriate for the most charismatic lot in the Fellowship. Now at level 3, we're now going to bounce over and multi-class into Rogue. The only thing you need to do for this level of Rogue is your skills, because you're just unlocking your sneak attacks, but you get expertise in 2 skills and a proficiency in another skill, so we're going to do that quick. So we're going to put the additional skill proficiency in athletics. They were actually quite spry for hobbits. And then the expertise, we're going to actually keep it where it is in sleight of hand and stealth. I mean, they're thieves. Need I say more? Gonna stay in Rogue for now, and at the second level of Rogue, we're just unlocking those handy dandy cunning actions. Still staying in Rogue, and this is so that we can unlock that subclass of Thief, because it's just so appropriate for these 2 characters, and taking the Thief subclass does unlock Fast Hands, an additional bonus action, and Second Story Work, which masters the art of falling to gain resistance to falling damage. Now that we've gotten them to the point where they've got a couple levels in Bard, and they are now officially Thieves, we're going to go back into Bard at this point for level 3, which is where you unlock the subclass. And the reason that we're waiting until level 6 to get this subclass in Bard is because it is representative of the training they do with Boromir by choosing the College of Sword. We do need to choose a spell here, so we are going to go with Featherfall. This is really just meant to be a functional choice. They're obviously not immune to falling damage, but they're actually pretty hardy and they can take a big fall and be okay. We also have to choose a fighting style, and obviously 2-weapon fighting doesn't work. Dueling does though, because they tend to fight with just a single short sword. And dueling says that if you're wielding a melee weapon that's not 2-handed or versatile in one hand, no weapon in the other, you get to deal an additional 2 damage with that weapon. And if you wanted to add a shield later on, which granted isn't really appropriate to the characters, but if you just wanted to for the additional AC, then you can carry that shield in your free hand and still get the bonus. So that's nice. All right, we're going to do one more level in Bard here to ensure that this build gets 2 feats and that they only dip into their 3rd class choice just a little bit, and you'll see why. So for the cantrip, we're going to grab Blade Ward just as a nice functional cantrip. And for the spell, I'm actually going to go Enhance Ability here. Hobbits are, after all, quite remarkable. And then we get to unlock that first feat, and we're going to use Ability Score Improvement to even out the Dexterity to a lovely 18 and Con to 14. Now at this point, don't get dizzy, but we're going to bounce back into Rogue, and we get to unlock our second feat right away here. And for this, we're going to go with Good Ol' Lucky, because let's face it, all of the hobbits in the Fellowship are damn lucky. Staying in Rogue for now, and at this level we are just unlocking Uncanny Dodge, which really is appropriate for these 2. One more level in Rogue here, and all we need to do is choose expertise in 2 more skills. We're just going to go with Athletics and Acrobatics here to reflect their advancement in handling themselves in combat. All right, now at level 11, we are branching off. This is going to be Merry, and then I'm going to do Pippin. So for Merry, we're going to be multi-classing into Fighter. Fighter really felt like the right choice for Merry when he decides to join Éowyn in the battle at Pelennor Field. The fighting style is just going to be defense. There's really not another choice here that quite fits. And then at final level 12, nothing to do here, we're just unlocking the Action Surge. Now we're going to finish off Pippin's build. And now for Pippin at level 11, we are multi-classing into Paladin. We considered making Pippin a Ranger Knight instead of Paladin, but because Boromir went into Paladin, representing his oath to Gondor, we decided to stay consistent and have Pippin dip into Paladin to also represent his oath to the Steward of Gondor. And here's a fun fact for you. Pippin's father's name was Paladin. So at level 11, we're just going to be choosing the oath, and the most appropriate oath available is Oath of Devotion. And at level 12, we are going to choose the Defense fighting style, just like we did with Mary, for the same reasons. Now, we can't choose the spells that become available, but we can at least key up the prepared ones. So I'm going to go with Protection from Good and Evil, Shield of Faith, Compelled Duel, Bless, and Command. Now, besides Protection from Evil and Good, Shield of Faith, and Compelled Duel, the other choices are not very relevant. I'm going to choose Bless and Command as the other two since they are still somewhat functional rather than based on dealing damage, but really dealer's choice at this point. All these spells are available anyway, so you can just choose the ones you want out of it. And that will do it for the Mary and Pippin build, so now let's go into the bonus section. Like with the Sam build, you can toggle the camp clothing on and off for most of their journey and remove their shoes so that it looks more fitting for their characters until you get to the point where they split off into their own classes and start officially wearing armor. You can also toggle the helmet off. I'm going to be recommending some dyes to improve the aesthetic of some of these items, so please note that all dyes are available from the Facemaker's Boutique in Act 3. Here are some equipment options. Both Mary and Pippin use short swords called barrow blades, which were given to them by Tom Bombadil. So for the most part, feel free to use the best available short sword, but here are some flavorful choices. Pippin eventually names his blade Troll's Bane for getting a few orc kills. You could use the slicing short sword, or the Knife of the Undermountain King to stand in for this. Mary's claim to fame is using his blade to backstab the Witch King. You could use the Sword of Clutching Umbra or the Sword of Life-Stealing to stand in for this, both available from Damon in Act 2. Note that the Sword of Life-Stealing is kind of what happened in reverse, because rather than Mary stealing life from the Witch King stole life from him. For armor, Pippin would be best suited to the Armor of Agility for form and function, and you can use the Harlequin black and white dye to make it the right color. Mary would be best suited to the Studded Leather Armor +2, and you can use the black and furnace red dye to make it look pretty close. For helmets, I would just recommend using basic helmets with the helmet toggled off for both characters until later in the game. For Pippin, you can start with the Holy Lance helm from Act 1 once you get medium armor proficiency, and then later switch to the Helm of Baldurin from Act 3. For Mary, I'd recommend the Haste helm from Act 1 for most of the game, which does not require any armor proficiencies. And as for an extra flair, either character could benefit from using the Risky Ring, giving advantage on all attacks at the cost of a disadvantage on saving throws. This can be countered with the Lucky Feat, and constant advantage means always triggering sneak attack without having to hide first. And there you have it, Mary and Pippin from the Fellowship, and with them out of the way, there's only one more Fellowship build to go, so stay tuned for the Gimli build next. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider giving it a like, leaving a comment, and subscribing. Thanks for watching.